Do you overthink about the text you receive? Or maybe apologize too much? Sometimes you feel guilty about resting. Maybe you push away good people even though you genuinely care about them. Even though you believe that is your personality, it is not your personality. It is the survival mode from your childhood. If you grow up walking on eggshells, your brain learns to scan everything as a threat or danger. That is the reason why you overthink about every small details. You don't trust people easily, may be responsible for everyone, and maybe hiding your emotions, sometimes being too independent. So many people who experience this childhood trauma do not know really actually this trauma is affecting them. Because all trauma does not look like dramatic. It maybe feels like never feeling to express emotions, sometimes emotional neglect, and continuous criticism, sometimes forcing to grow up too fast, never being truly understood, and walking on eggshells. And that is why survival becomes your personality. As we know, this childhood trauma affects our personality, so we should identify these personality traits. So, most people discuss the negative personality traits, but we also have the positive personality traits with this childhood trauma. So, I'm going to be discussing the personality traits and the problem that we face with the negative personality traits and how do we heal from these negative personality traits. So, if you are interested in this, please continue to watch this because it is very important for you to understand how to deal with this kind of situation. Even though we don't expect this to happen to us, but we should deal with them and we should heal. The first negative personality trait is overthinking about everything. So we replay the conversations that we had with people in our mind again and again. Sometimes we overthink about the text we received. Sometimes we can see the slightest changes of a tone of some people quickly. That is because our brain learns that slightest emotional change is linked to a danger. So you become hyper aware to protect yourself from this danger. That is why you overthink. The second one is people pleasing. Sometimes we struggle to say no and we avoid conflicts, and sometimes you feel very guilty about disappointing people because as a child being liked maybe felt like safer than being yourself. So you learn that maybe if I keep everyone happy, then I will be accepted. That is why you please people. The third personality trait is hyper independence. You tell yourself I am enough, I don't need anyone. But deep down, that is not strength, it is fear. A fear that, depending upon people, will create pain, disappointment, and abandonment. So you carry everything alone by yourself. The fourth personality trait is very painful and it is very difficult. That is trusting issues. So if you have a childhood trauma, normally, during our childhood, we tend to trust our guardians or primary caregiver. So, if we are being abused and we have childhood trauma related with the primary caregiver, so we build a neural pathway that the people that we lean on cannot be trusted. So, we have a personality trait that we never trust people quickly. So you may have a small circle. Sometimes you don't have friends and many people surrounding you because in your brain you felt like if the primary caregiver is like this, then the rest of the people will say, so I can't trust anyone. People are coming back to me and people are always trying to fight with me and do harm for me. That is very painful because it is very difficult to have social connections and live a normal life. The fifth one is emotional numbness. Sometimes you feel like emptiness. Sometimes you struggled during the stress period, and sometimes it's very hard to feel connected. That is because your nervous systems recognize the emotional are overwhelming, that is because your nervous system recognizes those actions as overwhelming and unsafe. So instead of feeling everything, coping with everything, you learn to feel like nothing. The last negative pattern is constant self criticism. No matter what you achieve in life, you never feel enough. So you compare yourself constantly. Sometimes you feel like you are behind in life. That inner voice may have started from the years of criticism, pressure, neglect, or emotional invalidation. And eventually, their voice becomes your voice. So we discussed the negative patterns in the personality in related to the childhood trauma. But trauma does not create only the negative traits, it also creates powerful personality quality. We are going to be discussing the positive traits of personality in related to the childhood trauma. So the first positive character is deep empathy, because you already understand the pain behind this. So you notice when people are suffering and when people are hurting. So you notice them and you became very empathy towards them because you know the pain behind that, because you suffered that pain. The empathy you have in your heart is very deep than normal people. The second positive trait is emotional intelligence. So you can quickly read the energy behind people, and sometimes the moods that they are in. You can understand the emotions deeply. So you can identify people, the mood, the behaviors, and everything very quickly because your survival, your childhood trained you to do that. The third positive trait is resilience. So the people who experience childhood trauma went through a lot of hardships and a lot of emotional pain and sometimes physical pain. So that experience does not received by normal people. So you overcome those periods and yet you still survive. So these traits and these qualities is very important to achieve anything in your life because you survived and you went through a lot of things, and that strength matters a lot. The last positive trait is creativity and depth. So most childhood trauma survivors became artists, visionaries, thinkers, healers. So they become creative people just because they know the depth. Because the pain often creates the depth, and this depth created the connection with people. So your pain and how you went through that pain will be a learning to someone who is still facing the childhood trauma or trauma related issues. As we discuss the negative and positive personality trait, the problem related with the negative personality trait is that the behaviors that protected you as a child with this childhood trauma can slowly destroy your peace as an adult. Overthinking destroys the calms, people pleasing destroys the identity, hyper independence destroys the connection, emotional numbness destroys the joy, and these traits make you feel like you are living in a survival mode instead of living your life to the fullest potential. The healing does not mean that pretending that this pain did not happen. So the healing means that we train our nervous system that those dangerous period is over. So with that, we will discuss the healing practices that we can do. The first thing is awareness. So the first thing, when you recognize these patterns in yourself, you should not blame yourself. You should try to understand yourself and be always aware of the things that is going in your head, and that is the fundamental and main thing that we should do, because awareness creates that we can change the narrative into a different aspect. For overthinking issue, the first thing that you should do is take some deep breath, and you should understand that this is the fear going in my mind and it is not the reality. And you should understand the overthinking that is going in your head, and you can listen to some music and you should calm down the nervous system, because fear creates an alert system. So you are always anxious, so you should calm down your nervous system and be in the awareness as the first thing, and you should identify the overthinking pattern and make sure not to vigorously change that overthinking to something else, because it's never happening. Because you should have to understand that we can't force anything into our mind. We should slowly understand the awareness is very important. So the overthinking pattern should be converted into natural, normal pattern. So for the people pleasing character, you should identify the thought as, is this is related to people pleasing, or I need this genuine to be done for someone. So usually when we avoid of doing those people pleasing habits, it will be very difficult. We feel like guilt and we feel like very sad in ourselves, but it's very normal. You should keep the boundaries, because you can't do everything for every other people. So you can sometimes say no, and I can't do this, not in a vigorous and aggressive way, but in a calm and firm way. That way, you can have the boundaries with people and you don't want to please people every time. But you should understand that don't be ever aggressive and be unkind to people. Just identify the character and slowly change that narrative. Another important thing that I want to mention in people pleasing character is that when you avoid that character, you feel like selfish first, but after that, you feel like very peaceful. For hyper independence, so you should understand that we can trust some people and we can share our things with people. So share your emotions and feelings with trusted person before it will become emotional explosions. Stop disappearing when you feel like overwhelmed and emotionally very heavy. So don't disappear. Most importantly, learn that vulnerability is not your weakness. Sometimes we need few people in order for our life to share our moments and share our heavy thoughts, because independence does not create fulfilling life, because you heal in safe relationships, not from the isolation. So for emotional numbness, the first thing that we can do is reconnect with our body. You can do exercises and you can do swimming and you can do yoga. You can reconnect your mind with body. Also, you can journal your thoughts and emotions in most clear and trusted way. So one of the most important thing is sit quietly and see what is going in your mind. What are the thoughts going in your mind? That is very important. So you can apply some meditation and yoga rituals to this as well, because it is very important, because we will calm our nervous system and our mind, and that is very important for our healing. So one of the most important thing in here is you should reduce the distractions. Sometimes we scroll through internet and sometimes we like noises, and we should reduce these noises, because many people are not numb because they feel nothing. People are numb because they feel way too much. So for self-criticism, we should change our inner voice. So there are so many inner mind talking is going in our mind. So we feel this as very negative and very self-sabotage. So in that way of talking going in your mind, you can quickly aware about that thoughts and does not give any meaning. Just these thoughts will go and come and go. So you should understand that that does not mean that you are that kind of person. So these thoughts will come and go away. It is because you were programmed like this. That does not mean that is the reality. So if there is a thought like I am not good enough, you can think like it. Who taught me to think like this way? And this way you can change this narrative. So instead of that thought, you can replace that thought. I am healing, I am changing, I am deserving, I deserve this, and I am very great. Because you should understand that healing does not mean being lying to yourself. It means that you avoid cruelty to yourself. So with that discussion, we have come to the end of our video. So I want you to understand that healing does not mean that becoming perfect. It is becoming safe. Safe enough to rest, safe enough to trust, and most importantly, safe enough to stop surviving in every moment. So with that understanding of the discussion we had today, I know one day you will feel like you are not living your life fear to a danger. and now you feel like you live your life into the fullest potential. So, finally, this is my last message to you. So, we faced a lot of problems and issues that sometimes other people don't understand because they never felt and they never experienced these conditions in their life. They had a better life. So, that does not mean your pain, your problems does not mean anything. That is valid. That is valid in here. So I want you to change your personality because I have changed my personality. I have learned a lot of things and I know if I can do this, you can do this as well. So keep believing your potential and keep believing your possibilities because if you change your mind, if you change your personality, if you change the way you think, the way you behave, the way you act, you can achieve anything in life. Because I believe the failure of one chapter does not mean that is the end of your life. You have a good life and you have to enjoy that life. If you want to join and learn more about healing things and how to change your brain, how to change your life and live a fulfilling and happy life, please join with me. I'm Luziana Ray. I want other people to change like I changed as well. I want to share my knowledge and I want to see a positive change in this world. So if you want to help me, please join with me and share this message with everyone. And most importantly, make sure to love yourself first and love the rest of the world.